to get up to pee, but you're in the window seat and you're so relieved she does, because that means you don't have to ask the guy in the aisle to get up. Allie Ward, back with another episode of Ologies. Oh, video games. Video games, what's their deal? How do they affect our brains? Have we got an ology for y'all? Okay, first, I do have some thanks. Thanks to everyone who's pledging some of your latte money or tossing me $0.25 a week on Patreon for making it possible for me to get my physical butt in the same space as the ologist, or in this case, to pay a recording studio to do our first ever remote interview. Very exciting. Thanks to everyone sporting Ologies merch out in the wild. That's at ologiesmerch.com. T-shirts, hats, pins, all of that. Thank you to everyone who rates and subscribes and reviews, and you leave such nice notes. For example, Naimon says, I love this podcast so much. I found it when searching for podcasts to help me sleep. Sadly, I found a podcast to binge and stay up even later. Thank you, Allie Ward, for the podcast that has everything from biology to beauty. I never did solve my sleeping problem, but I don't really mind anymore. So thank you for the podcast. Well, thanks for the review. Try the Fancy Nancy. Just lay in bed. You think of a category, and then you think of something that starts with an A and a B and a C. If you didn't listen to the sleep episode, that's in part 2 of the sleep episode, and it's named after my very fancy mom, Fancy Nancy, who came up with it. Okay, anyway, back to Lidology. Who's excited? We all are. So, Lidology. Let's get right into it, pals. So, it's a real word. It means the study of games, and it comes from the Latin ludare, meaning to play. Yay! So it was coined sometime around the 1950s. So it didn't mean video games back then because time machines had not yet been invented. But nowadays it can encompass gameplay and sports and cards, of course, beep bop video games. So this ologist has been beep booping in my periphery for years. My sister told me about her TED Talk, and she was discussing her game Super Better that can help folks who are healing from an illness or going through anxiety or depression. So I've been a fan of hers for years, and I reached out to her. I chewed my fingernails waiting for a response. She said she was down to record, but our schedules just couldn't get aligned. So finally, I took the plunge. She ducked into a recording studio in Berkeley. We taped this remotely, you guys, and it wasn't awkward. She's so good. She has a PhD from University of California at Berkeley in performance studies, and she's designed games since 2003. So she taught game design and game theory at UC Berkeley and the San Francisco Art Institute. She's been named as one of the 20 most inspiring women in the world by this lady named Oprah in a magazine called Oprah. And she's a speaker. She's author of the book Reality is Broken, Why Games Make Us Better and How They Can Change the World. And New York Times bestseller, Super Better, a revolutionary approach to getting stronger, happier, braver, and more resilient. And she's the director of game research and development at the Institute for the Future. She's legit. So I was so nervous before taping this because she's just high badass. She couldn't have been more affable and great. And we chatted about IRL games, board games, animosity, Fortnite, the line between play and addiction, League of Legends, gambling, lottery tickets, off-brand Atari, what Tetris does to the brain, video games and violence. Should kids play games? We talked about aliens, soup, and how games can change your life for the super better. So let's press start on a truly life-changing conversation with lidologist Dr. Jane McGonigal. Hi, Jane. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so excited to talk to you in person. Let me unzip my jacket so I don't... It might make noise. I'm going to take that off. That'll be better. All right.
So, hi, first off, Dr. McGonigal. It's lovely to talk to you.
You could also call me Professor McGonigal for all the Harry Potter fans out there.
Oh my God. Does that happen a lot?
Yes. When that character started to exist, it made my life so much more fun.
The sorting ceremony will begin momentarily.
Do people spell it right now?
No, not at all. But they pronounce it correctly, which never happened growing up. So it has helped a lot.
And I do have questions starting right off. Growing up, you have a twin sister.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys grow up playing a bunch of board games. How do twin sisters pass the time?
Oh, well, okay. So first of all, we should talk about board games definitely during this interview, because some new research came out showing that normal board games are really bad for your relationships. Like, they lower your oxytocin levels. So we do have memories growing up playing board games, but we always fought at the end of them. And, I never... do you remember like games like Sorry, where you would, mercilessly take out other people's pieces and move them to the beginning of the game?
Sorry.
Monopoly, where like one person gets power and then lords it over everybody else for an increasingly unfun hour. Traditional board games are poorly designed for social interactions and are terrible for you. So yes, I do have memories growing up playing with them. Unfortunately, my sister never recovered from those early experiences and would never play like video games or anything else with me after that. And now, I mean, literally just a couple weeks ago, I saw this study showing that traditional board games lower oxytocin levels, like you trust each other less. And it makes perfect sense because the games are, as a game designer, I can point out all of the ways that they are poorly designed to, lead to negative social experiences rather than positive ones, the old school ones. The new ones are better.
Oh my God, that validates so much, because I remember even when you would win at Monopoly, you'd feel bad because you were hosing everyone in your family.
Yes.
You're like, I'm an asshole. I'm like such a slumlord right now. What do I do?
No, and I don't know. I think people maybe know this now, but Monopoly was originally designed as a pedagogical tool to teach people the evils of capitalism, and it was supposed to make you feel bad. You were supposed to play it and say, wow, this is awful and terrible, and let's be socialists. And so it was designed to make you feel bad, and so in that extent, it works. But playing it for fun, not a good idea.
Oh my word, I just went down a hole on this one. Quick aside. So Monopoly was actually the early 1900s brainchild of an anti-capitalist activist, and she was a comedian and a writer. She was a unmarried woman, Elizabeth Maggie, and she made it as a cautionary tale. And in her old-timey words, "Let the children see clearly the gross injustice of our present land system, and when they grow up, the evil will be remedied." Such high hopes, Lizzie, but perhaps the irony was just too lost on us. And that's why a land baron who shits in a golden toilet is presiding over the nation. Anyway, so the game had a very sexy original title. It was called The Landlord's Game, and Elizabeth Maggie worked her ass off on it, and then some jabroni played it at a house party, and she was ripped off. She made $500. He made millions because capitalism. So when did you start liking gameplay? At what point did you start playing video games, or did you start to realize that maybe designing was something you'd want to do?
I have some really positive early memories of my dad bringing home an Odyssey, which was kind of like the knockoff cheap Atari, because we were like a knockoff cheap family growing up. And so it had like knockoff Pac-Man called Casey Munchkin. That was really a bad version. Like it wasn't well designed either, and it was impossible to win. But yeah, he brought home these cartridges, and he would play with us and teach us how to get better. And I saw really positive early memories of spending time with my dad, kind of learning these new games and getting better. And he taught me chess, and our grandfather taught us poker and roulette at a very early age. Like we were like 5 or 6 learning how to play poker. So there was a lot of gameplay in my family. And then we got a Commodore 64, which for computer geeks, that was like one of the first at-home computers. You could learn basic programming. And so in like 5th grade, I started making my own computer games. And the very first one I ever made was called You Be the Judge. And I think it was inspired by watching a lot of Divorce Court and People's Court on daytime TV. So you got to be the judge, and also you were a cat, because I had to use like ASCII art, and I couldn't draw like a person that well, so I made you a cat. And you had a little gavel that was animated, and you would hear people's testimony and decide if they were guilty or not.
Oh my God. I watched so much People's Court too. I completely remember that. Was it gratifying to you when you started, even as a kid, designing games? Was it gratifying to see something that you had imagined be a reality? At what point, what really got you hooked in that?
It was totally the experience of having somebody sit down and play with it. I actually made board games. My sister and I would create life-size board games in our basement because we had this weird like 60s psychedelic tile. And so we would use each tile as like a space, and you would have to like go to prom and things like that. And then we would have people come over and play that, or I'd have people play my computer game. And it was watching how people would react and, did they laugh? Were they surprised? Did they try really hard to figure something out? It was the ability to provoke, I guess, all of these really positive emotions and see people like try and be challenged was really interesting to me. And I think through my whole life, that has been the single thing that's most interesting to me, is that the greatest joy you have as a game designer is the first time people start to play with it and you're like, oh my God, I had no idea that's what people would do. I'm going to change these 12 rules and change this constraint and refigure, what the goal is so that they do something different. But watching people react and how it brings out good things in them and maybe things you don't want to bring out in them, and you can change it. It's like kind of like being a chef and changing like the ingredients you're throwing in on the fly.
Just a fistful of delight, maybe a sprinkle of reflective sadness. I mean, after all, she had a PhD in performance studies, so the doc knows what's up. And you also studied performance, so do you feel like there's something almost like watching people watch a performance or watching someone watch a play or a movie that you've designed or written?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the same way that theater or choreography, you need a performer to make it real, right? The script or the choreography as it's designed, when somebody embodies it, it comes to life. And when different people perform a play or perform a dance or a song, they bring something different to it and express themselves through it. It's the same with a game. When you design a game or code a game, it's not real until a player comes to it, and then they bring something different to it. And with games, you get an even wider range, I think, of interpretation and expressivity. And so they do very much have that kind of idea in common that people bring these artworks to life and that they are the essence. It's actually funny. When I was a theater geek also growing up, so like double geek, theater geek, game geek.
Jane says that when she was around 11, she saw a one-woman play starring Lily Tomlin called The Search for Signs of Intelligent Life in the Universe, which was written by Lily Tomlin's now wife, Jane Wagner. And in it, one character named Trudy is a homeless woman who encounters extraterrestrials. She's trying to teach them what art is, as you would do.
And so she's showing them Andy Warhol paintings of soup cans, and then they hold up soup cans and they're like, is this art? And she's like, no, this is the art. This is the painting. And they have this whole thing. And then at the end of the play, they go to the theater with the homeless lady, and they forget to watch the play. They were watching the audience and all of their reactions and their laughter and their goosebumps. And the aliens are like, the play is soup, but the audience is art. And I'm telling you, that's the most influential thing in my whole life I ever saw or heard, because then I became obsessed with, how the people who interact with art or theater or games, they're the art.
So the people are the art. And Jane says when she was first starting her PhD work, she was kind of the weirdo because everyone else was studying the games themselves, but she was studying the players and how the games affected them. But I think it's good to be the weirdo, because that usually means that you have an impact to make and you're the first person to be doing something. So if you ever whisper to yourself, shit, why am I such a weirdo? Congratulations, because you're probably doing something right. And when did you start designing games as a job? When did it become your career?
It's such a wacky road. I mean, when I was in college, I worked with the New York City Department of Parks and Recreation, and I helped run these like really big, large-scale recreation events, like an Easter egg hunt for 35,000 kids, and in Central Park. And I always think of that as some of my early game design work, because they are games, they're not digital, but you come out and play. And when I went to grad school, I started my PhD program at Berkeley. I was meant to be studying scientists, and specifically quantum physicists, and how they collaborate and how they communicate their research with the public. So not at all games. I got a side gig my first semester as a PhD student, there was a new game company in San Francisco that they wanted to essentially play games in reality. They were inspired by the Michael Douglas movie, The Game.
Consumer Recreation Services. Call that number. Why? They make your life fun.
Which, you know, he can't tell. Is it real? Is it the game? It's a bunch of actors pretending to be real people, and they give him missions, and his whole life is transformed, and he has these amazing revelations about, you know, the meaning of everything. But also it's really confusing because the game is played in reality. And so this company was like, we're going to do that, but we're going to be nice and it's going to be fun and silly and you're not going to be confused. They're still running all these reality games, and you run around the city and do missions like payphone will ring and they'll give you a code, and then you'll find a box and a pile of leaves, and the code opens the box and there's a raft inside and you have to take the raft out on a lake, and then you find like this snorkel equipment and you have to find something at the bottom of the lake, and then like it's like, you know, you get to be really adventurous in reality. Anyway, they hired me, and that was the beginning. That was how I earned my credentials to go to the Game Developers Conference. I'm like, I'm totally a game developer.
So working in theater turned to working in live events, turned to working in live events with mobile phones. And then when did that go digital? What happened? Well, 9/11 did. Jane had just moved to San Francisco a few weeks before after living in New York for 6 years.
Something weird that happened while we were processing all of that was that an online community of gamers that we'd been a part of earlier that year, playing this online game called the AI web game. It was very collaborative. You had like 40,000 people on one team all trying to solve the same puzzle. I mean, kind of like early Reddit in a way. Like everybody's trying to solve the same problem using message boards. And that community came back to the message board, even though the game had ended a couple months earlier. And they were like, can we solve 9/11? It wasn't even called that yet, but like, can we solve this? Can we figure out what happened when it started to emerge that it was a distributed terrorist network? They're like, great, we're a distributed network of collective intelligence. We can understand how they might think or operate. We can figure out what security holes they snuck through. And they started to want to use their like game skills to help. And that was really interesting to me because I was feeling powerless and everyone around me was feeling like just like frozen. And here's this online community of people saying, wait, we are super collaborative, super collective intelligence. We, you know, save the world in this game. It would be stupid not to try to use those skills to help when the world really needs it. And that desire, that was literally the day I'm like, I think maybe I should study video games and gamers and how they collaborate instead of how physicists do, because I wanted to find out, like, is this delusional? Is this crazy wishful thinking because we're all so overwhelmed? Or are there problems that gamers could solve? And are there questions they could investigate and ways that they could use their skills in real life? And eventually I started designing, you know, digital games just to see if I could be the person to come up with that bridge. Like, I'm going to make a game that has real problems in it so that gamers can test out this hypothesis that they have.
How did they do with their research into 9/11?
You know, it morphed pretty quickly into trying to be of service. So what wound up actually practically happening was getting people out to donate blood and volunteer. So it became sort of more like community mobilization. But the same group of people then started investigating things like government corruption and cold cases, and they created a kind of spin-off site called Collective Detective. And so they kind of continued to play with this and see what they could do over the next couple of years. And that was really when I started designing games. Those are the people who showed up first to play.
So side note, I went to go look up Collective Detective, and the website has no pages. There's nothing to click. Simply the text, investigating the mysteries of Austin. Appointments by referral only. So I'm both spooked and intrigued. Do you have a favorite game that you have designed?
Oh, of course. I mean, when I think the one that's nearest and dearest to my heart would be Top Secret Dance Off. I don't know if you are familiar with this one.
So I have not played Top Secret Dance Off, as it gained huge popularity almost 10 years ago, but it's not in the App Store. unlike her other hit game, Super Better. I have Super Better, of course, but
more people played Super Better than Top Secret Dance Off, because I actually had to shut it down after about 6 months because it was taking over the players' lives, and I just could not handle. The average time spent in the game was about 6 hours a day, which was it was too much. But so the idea behind the game is, let's say you want to dance but you're shy. This is a lot of my games are based on my own problems. So, you really want to dance, dancing's great for you, it feels good, but you're super shy. Maybe if you could dance in disguise, then it would bring out the top secret dancer in you. So the premise of the game was, you start the game by creating your avatar, which is not a digital avatar. It's a disguise that you put on in real life. And you introduce yourself to the community by doing the first dance quest, which is to dance without moving your feet. So this introduces your avatar, which people were wearing masks, some wigs, and just amazing. Just invented the most beautiful characters. And then there's a series of dance quests that you unlock, like dance upside down and dance on a crosswalk. And it was and then you power up with things like +1 creativity and +1 coordination and +1 courage. And the points were given to you by other players. This is 2009. So people became essentially today's Instagram stars, but for being characters in dance videos. And you didn't know who these people were, but I have since had the opportunity to meet many of these people in real life, and they're amazing. But it got really popular in weird places. It was super popular in New Zealand for a while, and I went down there to give a talk, and all the morning shows had me on TV, and there were film crews following me around. It was a weirdly popular thing in New Zealand. But what I loved about it is, because you got all your points from other players, and you could only give people positive feedback. And if you gave someone a point, you had to explain why. So it's just you'd post a video, and then you'd have 100 comments from people giving you points in these really amazing strengths, and also saying wonderful things about you. I've never seen so much just love and people expressing themselves. And finally, eventually shut the game down because it just got out of control, and I was self-funding it, and it was, I'm not an entrepreneur, so I probably should have tried to get VC funding or something, but I just shut it down instead.
It seems like a lot of your games have really amazing intentions to change the way people live or think. So after designing a bunch of games, including Cruel to Be Kind, I Love Bees, The Lost Ring, and of course Top Secret Dance Off, Jane was working in her home office, and she stood up quickly. She hit her head on an open cabinet door and suffered a concussion, which must have hurt like a bitch so bad. Now, recovery was really rocky, and she ended up developing her huge game, Super Better, to help others dealing with anxiety and depression and recuperation. So for more on this, you can see her TED Talk, which was ranked in the top 20 most engaging TED Talks, one slot higher than Bill Gates' TED Talk. Just saying. And so how far into game development did this happen? And can you tell me a little bit about Super Better and about kind of your recovery with that and how it made you look at games?
Yeah. So this happened in the summer of 2009. So this was actually after we'd been doing Top Secret Dance Off for about 6 months. And I was in the middle of writing my first book on games. So I had sold the book and I had to write it. And I was halfway through it. And so I was already totally persuaded that games bring out the best in us and games can change the world. I'd already finished my PhD. I was well into this and writing the book on it when I did get this concussion that, was supposed to heal in a few days, and then it was supposed to be a few weeks, and then it was supposed to be a few months. And it actually, it took years to feel essentially 100% again. But during that time, I had to stop writing, which created a lot of anxiety because the book was due in a few months. I had to stop my other work because I couldn't think clearly. I had to stop running. I couldn't exercise at all because I was having so much vertigo and nausea with even just moving my head. I couldn't socialize. I'd go out, and even just being around fluorescent lights would make me feel like I would, essentially would fall over. And so I couldn't do anything. Doctors are you have to stop. You can't, have caffeine because it's triggering symptoms. You can't play video games. It's triggering symptoms. And on top of not being able to literally do anything, I also started to have serious depression, partly from not being able to do anything, partly withdrawing from things like running and work and socialization. But also, I learned later that, 1 in 3 people with a concussion experience serious depression, and it seems to be part of the brain's way of protecting you, that it's very dangerous to get another concussion shortly after a concussion. It's called second impact syndrome, and you can die. And part of what happens when your brain is trying to heal is it literally does not want you to crawl out of the cave or get out of bed. It wants you to protect yourself and just stay put until it's safe to go out in the world again. The part of the brain that anticipates good things happening. By the way, I didn't know any of this at the time, right? I had to learn this because I'm like, why did my brain break? Why do I want to die? But I learned later that the part of the brain that anticipates good things happening, and when it's sort of fired up and you're getting dopamine hits and your brain's saying, hey, go out there, get that thing you want. It's a good food that you're smelling, or it's like your partner or your pet and you want a hug or a lick. And it gives you energy and focus. That part of the brain just says, no, thank you. I don't want to imagine anything good happening because I want you to stay in bed and let your brain heal.
How amazing is this? Okay. Also, content warning, Jane went through some pretty tough times following her concussion, and we talk a little about suicidal ideation after brain injury, which was something I knew nothing about because people just don't talk about it.
And when that part of the brain doesn't fire, you get really depressed and even suicidal because you literally cannot imagine anything good happening. Your brain just says, nope, we're not going to let you picture that. And I learned, kind of after all of this was happening to me, that's part of why suicidal ideation is so common in traumatic brain injury, because if it's a very natural response to, it's a rational response to not believing that anything could ever happen that would be good, that nothing will ever make you happy. And somehow through all of this, the fact that I did research into how games affect our psychology and our brain gave me one kind of holy grail aha moment.
Eureka.
Maybe I can force my brain back into believing that good things can happen as a result of my own efforts and attention, which took me years of researching after the concussion to put all the pieces together. But it turns out that's the fundamental neuroscience of gaming. Your brain says, hey, something good could happen. You could, go further in the game, get a higher score. You could get an advantage on your opponent if you take an action, if you make a decision. And that part of the brain that believes that something good could happen and gives you energy and focus and optimism, it goes nuts when we play games. That's the signature finding of fMRI research on video gaming.
So the premise for the work that Jane did was trying to bring a gameful mindset to things like recovering from traumatic brain injury or depression or anxiety. And she went on to develop the Thank You game for Oprah. And Jane has said that she's secretly curious about how games can develop the 7 positive traits that Buddhists believe can help end suffering. So what are those traits? I had no idea. Mindfulness, investigation, energy, joy, relaxation, concentration, and equanimity. So how do we go from game playing to a more chill, happy brain? And I ask this for the sake of my own brain, selfishly. Can you tell me kind of how games change the way we think, or what happens in the brain? What happens to dopamine and serotonin? What's going on? What's in that brainy soup?
Yeah. Okay. There's so much I want people to know about this, and there are 2 big pieces. And so I want to tell both of them because not everybody benefits from playing video games. For some people, it can become almost pathological. It takes them out of reality. It takes them out of their social relationships and their goals. So I want to preface what I'm going to say by this doesn't naturally happen for all people, the good things. And there are ways that you can, if you don't have a good relationship with gaming, that you can change it so that you're more likely to get the benefit. So I just want to preface all this by saying it's not like games are some magic pill that you play them and good things happen to you. It really depends on how you play and why you play, that good things can happen for a lot of people.
Just allow me to reiterate that disclaimer.
Games are not a magic pill, and not everybody benefits from video games, especially if you have a pathological relationship to them. However, they can really help in the following ways.
So the signature thing that I would say, as probably the person who has studied, I mean, I don't think there's ever been a scientific paper written about video games that I've not read, thousands of them. I am on it.
We're all counting on you.
I would say this sort of signature finding has to do with self-efficacy. So self-efficacy is the belief that you have the ability to take actions that can help you achieve your goals. Right. And that so you have skills, you have resources, you have pathways forward. And different people have different kinds of self-efficacy. Like I might have a lot of self-efficacy as a cook in the kitchen, but maybe not in my fashion like sense of like, what should I wear today? I'm just not feeling like I have a lot of talent in that area. Different people have self-efficacy in different areas. But if you have the experience of gaining self-efficacy in new areas, it can develop a kind of mindset that does translate. So if you are often doing things that you're bad at and then stay with it and get better, and suddenly you have new skills and you acquire new resources and you have achieved new goals and milestones, your brain gets better at looking at a difficult skill or task and saying, let me try it because I have a great and long history of getting better at things that I'm bad at. And that's what gaming does for most people. Games are designed to be hard the first time we play them. They are ridiculously challenging. I mean, you think about a game like golf, where the goal is to get a small ball in a small hole. And it is such a bad method to achieve that goal, like to stand really far away from the hole and then use like a stick. It's stupid.
You've got to make the game a little bit easier.
And why would we do that to ourselves? We do it because we want that experience of being bad and then getting better and having to use creativity and use practice and determination and learning from others. And so all games are like that, whether it's Candy Crush or Pokemon Go, whatever it is, you get better over time. And the more different games you play, the more your brain gets used to being frustrated, hanging in there, feeling optimistic in the face of setbacks. And that is the one generalizable positive impact of games that we see no matter what kind of game you play. Sport, challenging, cooperative board game, you're playing bridge, you're playing a video game. If we can help you get comfortable with not being good at something, trying, using your skills and abilities to get better at it, and then you do in fact get better, that can translate to the rest of your life. That's a lot of my work has been helping people, one, make sure you're always playing different games. Like the person who always plays Minesweeper or Solitaire, like they've been playing it for 30 years, not having this benefit. You got to try Fortnite or something. Like you got to expose yourselves to interfaces you don't understand and communities that are totally strange to you, so that you're always learning and improving.
Go tell Gramps, get on a headset, go play Call of Duty. She's gonna love it. She's gonna love it. So some people really benefit to a point.
But when you look at the research literature, the people who really benefit from this experience are people who feel like games are real in a way. Like they don't see them as escapists. They don't play games to ignore their problems or like shove down negative feelings or get away from people who are annoying them. Those people tend to not benefit because they see games as separate from reality. So they don't bring the same mindset to real life. And those are the type of players who go on to be you would call it addicted. It's not quite an addiction, but it's a kind of compulsive gameplay where they play more than is good for them. And they feel like they just have to keep playing because everything else is so terrible. People who can answer the question, like, what does it take to be good at this game? What have you gotten better at since you started playing this game? And can talk about it in a way that's bigger than just the game.
Such as, for example?
I'm a good communicator under stress with my teammates, or I'm really good at thinking of different approaches to a problem. I don't just try one way. I try lots of ways. Whatever it is that you think you need to be good at, if you can talk about that, you tend to start bringing those skills to real problems. And so, like if you're a parent or you're a partner of a gamer or you're a gamer, just answering those two questions can unlock essentially all the good stuff of games in reality, not just while you're playing.
So being a good communicator under stress and looking for ways to solve problems, both skills are aces. It's weird how if in a video game shit starts hitting fans, you can think logically or strategically, you can overcome it. But sometimes in life, it's easy just to feel bogged down and you just want to lie face down on a carpet and be like, not today, life. I am defeat. But you can ask yourself, hey, if this were a game, what would I do? First off, let's comb my avatar's hair. I never thought about applying it that way, that, yeah, it starts hard, gets frustrating, you get better at it.
Yeah. Like, Allie, is there a game that you play?
I grew up with a lot of Atari, Pong, and and like combat, and like 2 pixels on a screen was the whole game. It's funny because I feel like I don't play as many games as my peers, and I think instead I just use social media as a game, like for that same like reward. And I think
it's terrible. But
I know
you can't, because it's like it has all the sort of motivational aspects of games, but it's not. We got to get you off social media and onto Tetris 99, maybe, if you like old school games. It's like 100 people play Tetris against each other until there's only one survivor, which means everybody loses. So you can just embrace it.
That's more what I need. And it's funny, my boyfriend plays League of Legends.
Oh, yeah.
And my nephew and my nieces play Minecraft. And what I find is that they play with their friends. Yeah. They play online, so they hang out that way. Yeah. And I don't know, it seems like, is there a difference in games where you're playing against a computer versus you are in a community and your friends are on a headset and you're all yelling at each other trying to kill the same elf? Clearly, I don't know what I'm talking about regarding League of Legends, but I just looked it up, and there are Elder Dragons, Rift Heralds, Marksmen, Jungle Monsters. I don't know if any of those are elves. Anyway.
Huge difference. And it's not that one is better or worse, or they're good for different things, right? So like if you're dealing with anxiety or depression, a single player game is actually really good because you can like pull out your phone and play it for a few minutes, because one of the benefits of games is that it can stop rumination, right? So if you're anxious because you're imagining things that could go wrong, right? And it requires your brain to be actively focused on visualizing things that scare you. So one of the best treatments for anxiety in the moment is to just stop the ruminations, to make a conscious decision not to spend time and energy on these thoughts. And so a game on your phone, it could be like a mini golf game. It could be, Candy Crush. It could be Words with Friends. Anything that you can play by yourself is fine because it stops the thoughts. Same with depression. People with depression ruminate on very negative thoughts about themselves or their circumstances. And if you can stop that flow of thought, it's an effective treatment. So single player games are great, and they are really helpful for things like anxiety, depression, and pain. But social games are phenomenal for other things, the quality of positive emotions they create, the trust that they build. It's interesting you mentioned League of Legends. There's been great research showing that people who play League of Legends regularly have a stronger social support network than just about any other gamer, meaning there are more people in their lives who will be there for them if they need advice, if they need help in reality, like help moving or assistance, physical assistance. People who play League of Legends have a very powerful social support system where the people they play with actually, will loan them money. There's something about the pattern, building your heroes together and depending on each other to show up for your practicing or for your matches. And so that's really interesting. You mentioned that the kind of long-term relationships we build online are really powerful. And there's a term in game research and virtual reality research for one of the things that really heightens this, which is presence. A lot of these games have a really strong presence, which means you feel like you are actually with someone, that you feel like you were in the same physical space.
Which brings us to, let's talk Fortnite.
Fortnite has a phenomenal presence factor. People who go hang out in Fortnite now, so there are like 200 million players out of nowhere. Everybody's playing Fortnite.
Yeah.
They feel like they are together. And when we physically spend time with other people, it's a much stronger bonding that happens because we take cues from body language and facial expression and the way that avatars are being designed, and you can express yourself through dances and different emotes where you can really, I mean, your avatar expresses emotion just like you do in reality. It allows us to have a kind of bonding that I would say previously you would have needed to be in the same room with someone. But we're seeing both in just talking to gamers, but also in the research literature that these games that have this very strong presence, it does translate to a real social support system.
So online friends and in real life friends, the gap is kind of closing. Both can offer social support, and often hanging out online strengthens your real life bonds. And that's all so precious and so wonderful. But if you're wondering if there's a digital tipping point, I asked about that. Like, what happens if you're chasing dragons and then you're chasing the dragon? The addictive nature of it, or what's happening with dopamine and how that works. And are we getting these like little hits, kind of like gambling or kind of like other pleasurable things in our lives? How's that working?
Oh my gosh, Allie, there's so much to say here.
I know.
Let me start with the gambling question, because this, I think if people can understand this, it will alleviate a lot of anxiety around video gaming versus casino gaming. The thing that happens in your brain where you feel like something good could happen as a result of your actions, it is identical in gambling and video gaming, right? The part of your brain that says, try again, you might win, go ahead, go for it, that keeps you at that slot machine, or you just need to play another hand in gambling, or make another bet. Yes, that is identical to what's happening in video gaming. But what happens in video gaming is you actually get better at skills, and you acquire more resources, and you gain more allies who can teach you and help you and show you the way. And as opposed to luck-based gambling where you're just pulling the slot lever or scratching off a lottery ticket, you can actually get better and improve your chances of winning in video gaming. So it is a completely different psychological experience, a different neurological experience, because it is not delusional to stay engaged. And that is a big difference between video gaming and casino gaming, is that the games and casinos are designed for you to lose. They want you to fail so they can take your money, and it is delusional. When your brain says stay engaged, bad. That is ill social design and shameful, right? In my opinion.
P.S. Side note, stay tuned for an episode on the lottery with a lotologist. You don't believe old dad word? Please see lotterycollectors.com. Or you can subscribe to the monthly newsletter, The Lotologist. I've got an itch to cover it that can only be scratched by a dirty penny and a dream, but that's a different episode.
In video gaming, the games are designed for you to win and to get better. And the developers are on your side, and they want you to experience success, and they want you to develop real skills and build real relationships that can help you succeed. And that's the big difference. So even though some of the neuroscience is the same, the fact that you actually can improve in games and experience real, meaningful development and growth and relationship building, it's a different application of that kind of neurological experience. And so, as we see games kind of spread into different areas of our lives, I always say, is this a good use of game design? Is it manipulating people to do things that maybe aren't in their best interest, or is this actually a good use of game design? It really depends on, is there an opportunity for them to really improve and experience success in something that's meaningful to them, maybe like fitness trackers or gamifying the steps you take, and that actually is good for you, and you can take more steps, and that will have a virtuous feedback cycle where you feel healthier, and now you're stepping more, and you're sharing with friends, and it's upward spiral.
Take a sip of your beverage, or blink twice if your brain is, like my brain, trying to remember where your Fitbit is and why you haven't charged it in months.
That's really good if you're using it just to get people to like buy more stuff or click on ads. And how do you get better at clicking on ads? I mean, that is not a good system. And it doesn't lead to real growth and real relationship building. So that's my philosophy on how, even though it's a lot of the same stuff happening in the brain, it really matters if there's an opportunity for growth and success.
And that actually brings me, I have a ton of Patreon questions. Can I ask you?
Yeah.
So many questions. And so this is kind of like a lightning round. Okie doke. So before the lightning round of questions from folks on patreon.com/ologies, I tell you about a few things I like. But before that, each week, a portion of the ad revenue goes to a charity or a cause that the ologist chooses. And this week, Jane picked ablegamers.org, which works to make gaming accessible to all. So in their words, we give people with disabilities custom gaming setups, including modified controllers and special assistive technology, like devices that let you play with your eyes so you can have fun with friends and family. And they're using the power of video games to bring people together, improve the quality of life with recreation and rehabilitation. So that's ablegamers.org doing awesome stuff. So thank you, Jane. A donation was made to them. Now, a few words from sponsors who make the podcast possible. They're also all linked in the show notes. Oh, the winter blues. They're coming to an end, guys. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. Daffodils, they're going to spring up any second. And that means, you know what? Take care of yourself. But it can be really hard to know what vitamins and supplements you should be taking. For me, I'm like, am I taking too many? Am I taking too little? I don't know what I'm doing. And then Care of came around to take care of our vitamin needs. So they make it really easy to find out what specifically you need to be your healthiest. They have an online quiz you can take. It takes like 5 seconds, takes maybe 5 minutes. And you answer a few questions about your diet and your health goals, your lifestyle choices, how you eat, if you're tired. And then you get personal, scientifically backed vitamin and supplement recommendations. Again, takes like 5 minutes. And it's really fun because they ask you how skeptical you are of vitamins, what your energy levels are like. So you can say, I don't know. And up pops a study about that particular supplement. There are even vegan and vegetarian supplement options available. More power to you. And I filled out the whole quiz and I was like, oh, this is really interesting. I got my first shipment and they have you put your name in, and I put my name as Dad Ward, so all of my packages say Dad Ward. Anyway, so each one has your name on it, and then you can just toss them in your bag or your purse, so you don't have to carry around a weird, gross Ziploc bag full of disintegrating vitamins. If you want to try this, you can get 50% off your first month of personalized Care of items. You can go to takecareof.com. takecareof.com, enter ologies50. That's takecareof.com, enter ologies50, and you'll get 50% off your first month of personalized Care of vitamins. There's also a link in show notes, just in case you're operating a tractor trailer right now or you have an armful of sea otters. So takecareof.com and enter code ologies50 and take the quiz. It's fun. I'm not lying to you. Okay. When it's time to make a small hire for your business, you don't want to find someone who sucks, and you don't want to have not enough candidates or too many to sort through. Oh, who wants that? Literally no one. So the odds are the right person, guess where they are? They're on LinkedIn. You don't have to hire your friend's weird cousin. You can get the best people for the job. So LinkedIn Jobs makes it easy to get matched with really good candidates who make the most sense for the role, who are the best for it. They use hard skills, soft skills. They match someone based on not just like a resume and like, are they alive, but they match them based on skills and background, also interests, activities. They can match them based on passion. My most successful brainiac friends have an up-to-date LinkedIn profile. They don't sleep on that. You know what I mean? So you can post a job today at linkedin.com/ologies. You get $50 off your first job post. You're welks. That's linkedin.com/ologies. Find the right person for the job. Maybe they're an ologite, and it's just a match made in heaven. And by heaven, I mean the internet. Okay, linkedin.com/ologies. Oh, Stitch Fix. I'm going to talk to you about Stitch Fix for a second. So it's an online personal styling service that finds and delivers clothes, shoes, and accessories that fit your body, they fit your budge, they fit your life, they get what you're all about. So you fill out an online quiz. Like, what kind of clothes are you into? You like fancy stuff? You need ball gowns? What's the deal? You need cash? Talk to us. So what they do is they match you with a personal stylist who handpicks 5 items, sends it right to your door. You get them. You do not go to the mall. Someone picks stuff out for you, stuff that's really cute and awesome that you may not have picked yourself. You can also tell them what your price range is like. You try them on. You pay only for what you love. You can return the rest. Shipping, exchanges, returns are always free. They give you an envelope. You pop back what you don't want. Easy peasy. There's no subscription. And Stitch Fix's styling fee is $20, which is applied directly toward anything you keep from your shipment. It's so awesome. A stitch in time saves you 9 hours at the mall, wandering around thinking, why am I here? I don't even like any of this stuff. I just want to get a pretzel and go home and cry, which is what I usually do at the mall. You guys, they sent me a jumpsuit. Do you know how excited I was about that? A cute jumpsuit that I could wear casually or wear out to dinner. They also sent these great, cute brown booties. I love a booty. I'm talking too long. This ad is only supposed to be a minute. I have to wrap it up. I'm going to tell you, stitchfix.com/ologies. You'll get an extra 25% off when you keep all 5 items in your box. So you get an even deeper discount if you're like, I love everything in here. That's stitchfix.com/ologies. Get started today. stitchfix.com/ologies. Let someone else pick out the clothes. It's cuter anyway. Okay, back to your Patreon questions, which are good ones. But that dovetails just wonderfully into one Patreon question I got a ton from Mark Williams and from David Boffa and from Sasha KD. They all asked about gamification, and I know that I don't think that you love the word, but is the gamification of behavior a useful technique? Sasha K wants to know, how do you feel about gamification of everything?
Yeah. You are awesome, Allie, for knowing that I do not use the word gamification to describe my own work, because just historically it's been used not in ways that authentically empower or bring the best out of the people who are being gamified. So my philosophy is, if you are connecting with somebody's deeply held values, what do they want more of in their life? They want to be a better parent. They want to learn something new every day. They want to be braver and get out in the world more, be more physically active. Whatever it is that they authentically want to do, that they choose for themselves, if you can put a quest system or a leveling up system or a kind of cooperation opportunity where there are multipliers, if you and your friends are doing it together, you can add some game design elements that help people do more of what they want. And if they do it, they're going to experience an upward spiral of skill and ability, so they can maintain it outside of the game. That's an ideal situation for gamification. I always say with my own game, Super Better, that's not a game I want you to play your whole life. I want you to play it for a few weeks and then get that upward lift and kind of go back to reality, and maybe come back next year if you need another upward lift. We shouldn't be gamifying our whole lives in perpetuity, right? We should use it as a way to give us that authentic experience of getting better at something that matters to us. And then once we're better and we're doing it, that authentic value and reward system will replace the need for a more artificial game one.
So if your aunt or your coworker announces every time they hit their water goal for the day, don't hate the player, hate the gamification. And then a bunch of people, Colin Matthew, Carla Kennedy, Helen, Amy Connor, all asked about dreams. Why do I dream of Tetris after playing Tetris for a long time? 2 people in particular, Colin and Amy, both said, I love Tetris, but if I play it too long, I start thinking about it all the time. And when I close my eyes, I literally see little Tetraminos fall. Like, why does this happen? And is it a Soviet mind control conspiracy? Just kidding on the last part.
It is not. First of all, I can say, having hung out with the original designer of Tetris, I will tell you, he's super nice and cuddly, and it's not a secret Soviet mind control mission.
So quick aside, the creator of Tetris was inspired by the math game Pentominoes, which looks just like analog Tetris. Also, he is not an agent of Soviet mind control. His name is just Alexei Leonidovich Pejivanov. And he's from Moscow. So
this is the greatest question, because the other public service announcement I always like to do about video games actually has to do with Tetris and how it takes over your mind. Because there have been 3 randomized control trials and studies and clinical trials now, including one in the field with people who experience traumatic events, that show that the way that Tetris takes over your brain so that you are flashing back to it, it can prevent flashbacks associated with post-traumatic stress disorder. And there's actually an increasing usage of Tetris within 24 hours of a traumatic event. If you were in a car accident, maybe you witnessed a violent activity, or you were a victim of violent activity, that if you play Tetris within 24 hours and before you go to sleep, that your brain is more likely to flash back on Tetris in the event, which reduces the rate of traumatic flashbacks in the future. And it happens because Tetris is so visually compelling and requires so much visual attention that your brain essentially diverts resources from everything else, and it works so hard on this problem that when you walk away from it, your brain is continuing to work on it. It's when you give so much attention to a problem, your brain thinks it's a priority, essentially. And so because Tetris is so visually challenging, your brain essentially thinks like, oh, that's a priority. I'm going to keep thinking about it when I walk away, when I go to sleep. And so in a way, Tetris is kind of like this miracle. Even if you're not traumatized, if you had a really bad day and you don't want to sit there thinking about it or like stay up all night thinking about it, you can use Tetris to block your brain from flashing back on an experience that you don't want to remember. You use the power of Tetris to flash back on Tetris. I mean, I can't tell you, since I started sharing this research, I've heard from people who've been through really horrible, terrifying things, who were able to get the game on their phone and play it, and felt like they benefited and had fewer nightmares and flashbacks than they thought. So to your patrons who have observed this, they are correct. And it can be used in really powerful ways.
Oh, that's so amazing. I just like BRB downloading Tetris. Just
yeah,
like...
and we have it.
I downloaded Tetris immediately after this interview. Also, this is going to be a whole aside about video game music and its origins and history and composition. But in researching it, I found out that the study of video game music is known as ludomusicology. For real. For real. There are experts all over the world who do this. So yes, you best believe this is on the list. All in favor? Say bebop, ba-doop, boop, boop. Okay, good. Okay, I got a ton of questions also about... Wait, hold on. I have so many different pages of questions. It's crazy. Okay. I got a ton of questions about VR.
Yeah.
Like Justin So, Dion Dabolo, Kirana Bergstrom, and Janelle York all wanted to know, what video game advances should we look forward to? Like, how do you see the industry developing, and how does VR and AR change game design, like virtual reality and augmented?
Yeah. Oh, so many things. Okay. I'm going to focus on a few things. One advance that we are going to see in gaming in general as a result of virtual reality, I believe, is that gaming will become a socially safer and more pleasant space for people who have historically experienced more harassment. So for women, people who are identified as queer, there can be a lot of harassment in social gaming, and that's just a fact. I spend a lot of time talking to VR developers, and I know that all of the major VR developers are very much focused on not repeating the mistakes of the past of both social media and video gaming. They do not want VR to be a space where anybody can come up to you and tell you what they think. Anybody can come up to you and have an interaction with you.
What are you looking at, butthead?
They want to invent new kinds of technologies for consent, for who can see you, who can touch you, who can talk to you. I'm very optimistic that VR is going to thoughtfully not replicate the kind of toxic environments that we've seen in social media and video gaming in the past. So that's one thing. Like, yay. Another thing that I'm excited about in VR is VR esports. So there are, esports is obviously becoming really popular and accepted. I mean, there are college scholarships, there's college leagues, there's more people watching online world championships for the biggest League of Legends finals than watched Major League Baseball, World Series, and watched the NHL.
Okay, quick aside, just to fact check this. Let's look at the most watched World Series in recent years. 2016, Chicago Cubs are in the World Series for the first time since 1907. This is a big deal. Game 7. Who's going to win? The viewership is about triple what it usually is for a World Series, with 40 million people watching. The Chicago Cubs take the victory, 40 million. Oh, but last year the number of people watching the League of Legends finals was 100 million. Well, that's an exaggeration. It was 99.6 million. So yeah, that's a lot. Sorry, Cubs.
It's very popular. But I'm interested in esports and VR because the esports and VR are often very physical. If you look at images or videos of them online, you see people leaping and crawling, and there's a real blend of physical sport, but also all the things that require you to be good in video games and esports, the kind of fast reflexes and visual attention and resource management that are the kind of strategic decision making that we see in traditional video games and esports. So I'm excited for VR esports also as a way to have both real physical and beautiful gameplay alongside traditional esports skills.
Someone develop VR Frogger, but make it like Mission Impossible, but ushering toads across freeways. Come on, do it for the toads. A bunch of people also had questions about parenting, and I know that you have twin 4-year-olds, so I'm sure this is going to be a thing for you. But let's see, Matt Salgado, Carla Hickenlooper, Radha Vakaria, Carla Kennedy, and a few other people asked about addiction too. When should kids start playing video games, and how much is too much?
Okay, so you cannot go wrong if you are playing the game with them. That's the first and most important rule. There's no too soon if you are playing with them and talking to them about it. And for as long as you can continue this, the better. So even if it's a single player game, they're building something in Minecraft, you are sitting right there. You're like, what are you doing? How did you know to do that? How did you figure that out? Like, it looks really hard. What's going on? Talk to your kids. Let them express their problem-solving process, what's motivating them about the game. Why is this fun? You want to just draw out as much as you can because it allows kids to really reflect on how they learn, what they're getting better at, how they are capable of solving difficult problems and staying engaged with hard challenges. Games are just the most incredible environment for you to validate your kids' skills and abilities as a learner, as a creative person, as a problem solver. So it's never too early. If you're playing with them, and at whatever age they are, the more that you can reflect back to them.
Why did they get annoyed with you?
They get annoyed with you. It's like if they're playing Fortnite, they don't want you asking them necessarily while they're trying to like frantically build an escape route. But afterwards, talk to them.
It's called Ologies. So this one is called
so that's the first and most important thing.
About video games. She has some
tell me like, games
video
seem like kind of antisocial.
Designer.
Well, they're probably talking to their friends on a headset, or if you think it's antisocial,
Jane McGonigal. She had like this
successfully solved that problem. And the other thing about in terms of timing, I did help do a meta-analysis of all the studies that have looked at kids and adults, how much is too much.
Is it better
and
now?
I will say that there have never been studies showing ill effects when people are playing less than 20 hours a week.
Okay.
You do see impacts on
so right now I am
on social relationships with people who don't
creating
play games,
an art
on
center.
physical health and well-being over 20 hours
It's
per week.
based on
So that's
an
just
art
another
center
kind
I
of
sort of made
safe zone. And you
a
can say,
while
in our
back.
family, we don't play more than 20 hours a week. We just don't do that because that's what all the research says. It starts to kind of interfere with other goals that you have or your physical well-being. So we just don't do it. And in cases of serious pathological gameplay, when
I
people
haven't
are
posted
staying
this
up
one
all
'cause I
night,
never
they're not doing the
finished it and I
schoolwork, they're
didn't
not
like
looking
it.
for a job. I always say get it
Okay,
to
so
20
this
hours
was
or
like it
less.
had
Do not
some
take the game away
murals.
because if you understand
It was
the
a
powerful
gym in
effects of
there,
games
so I
on
had
things
like
like
a
anxiety and
garage
depression
and a
and
cafe
social
area.
support, taking
This
games
was a
entirely
yoga
away from
studio.
someone
I know
is
I
like pulling
finished
them
that.
off an antidepressant or an anti-anxiety drug without
you.
tapering.
I looked up quitting gaming cold turkey, and I did find a site called
see. This one
gamequitters.com,
had- okay, the
which
second
suggested
floor
taking a
has-
90-day detox to
This was
reevaluate
all
the role of gaming
a
in your life.
music
It
room
also
and then a
suggested that
woodworking
during that time,
room,
choose new
an art
activities,
center, or like an
schedule
art
out your
room,
day, and
photography
stay out of the
studio.
house as much as possible.
I do
So
want a photography
maybe it's a good idea
studio.
to just record how much time you're
And a kids'
spending on
room.
gaming if it's a problem.
In this
and
one,
then,
I
as
want to
Jane
make a
says, you
land
can just
center.
taper off from there.
There's really no need
So I
to
think that
take it
should
away
be
entirely. It's about
normalized.
getting it to a safe number of hours. So as an intervention, if you need to intervene, get it down to 20 hours a week.
So
and
that one has
is
a land
a
center.
much
Let me
more
see.
effective
So I'm
strategy
a little
than trying to get somebody to
not
stop
really
playing.
inspired right now.
That's so interesting. I love that you've read every paper
God.
ever. You like have all this information.
I
and
do.
so a
I do
bunch
have
of
all the
people asked
expansion
about
packs. Yeah.
violence in video games.
Yeah.
Emily Brabish, Anna Elizabeth, Janelle
What's your
York, Lauren
what's your
Murray,
favorite? Like
McKay,
mine's-
Sarah Jane James,
I don't
Amber
know what mine
Cooper,
is.
and then they all kind of asked, do violent video games cause more violence? Is there any
Okay,
link between these
this
ultra-realistic
library
violent games?
here, it
And
has a
then
land center,
Don
but I
Doherty
based it off
said,
like
my husband is a lawyer, so
Stranger
my question
Things
is,
kids.
why
I
does
imagine
coming
this
home
is
from
where they would
work
go
and
to.
killing things in games like Dark Souls help him relax after a stressful day?
Oh, that's funny. 'Cause Dark Souls is a very specific example. That's like a almost
On
like a
PS4, I
masochistic
have
game.
not
Like,
played
it's
on the
very,
PS4.
very
I don't know
hard.
if it's harder to
Yes,
build
I
in The
looked into
Sims
this
4. Is it?
Japanese game of fortresses and knights and dragons.
Okay, so
and
this
bonfires
library-
and brutally lit castle interiors to find a few things.
I'm so
One,
proud of
you can
it,
play
so
as a person
pretty.
who has no skin, which looks essentially like a human made out of salami, killing
Okay.
things.
Anyway,
with a sword.
I'm not gonna show
Also,
off.
it's
This
widely
library
considered one
has
of the
this land
best and
center.
most difficult video games ever made. Like, there's not even
I
a
don't know why
pause
the
button.
little columns aren't
There's
popping
no
up.
pause button. They're like, are you in this or are you in this?
Well, anyway,
So
it
it's
has
funny. I mean, there's like some like high-powered lawyer
area,
who
but
like
it's so-
works really hard and then comes
it's for
home and plays
kids.
like literally the hardest game. Is
So the
it
one that I'm gonna
definitely
make
reveals
over
something
there
about
is
that
not gonna be for
person's,
kids.
like,
I think it's gonna aim
personality.
for
They really,
teenagers
they really do like a
mostly.
challenge. So violence. Okay, look. Statistically,
excited.
we know that 96% of men under 21
If you have a few
play
expansions,
violent
have to buy
video
some
games.
more.
And I prefer to use the
Are
term,
you
like,
just
games
on
with violent
PS4 or are you
content,
PC
because
too?
obviously the most violent game is like football, real football, where you are hitting people and causing brain injuries. That is an actually violent game. Video games are not actually violent. So let's say games with violent content or
Okay.
aggressive themes. Everybody plays them, and if you look at the data, violent crime has gone down and down and down, exactly as engagement
Okay,
with
what do you think about
violent
these
themed
shutters
games has
here?
gone
Should
up
we
and up.
keep
I mean,
them
it's
blue?
like, it's ridiculous.
Keep it like a pop of
If there were
color.
any,
I wanted to do a
any
contrast with the colors.
correlation, let alone causation,
white and the gray.
you would not see this trend. This is like anybody who studies this will. That's the first thing they will
can do
say
white,
is
but it looks
over the
too
past
white.
30 years, violence, crime goes down, particularly in this demographic, this male demographic.
That can
it
definitely
probably has to
work.
do with getting lead out of our
Gives like
paint.
little funk.
I mean, that's you should do a good aside on that.
Okay, first off, the fact that Jane listens to ologies and knows I do asides warms my heart to the
It
point
does
of
look kinda
bursting.
off, okay.
And also, yes.
All right, what
lead
about
paint.
that one then?
So, according to an article
Think
on
that might
Mother
work.
Jones that delves into the lead
I was also
violence
messing with
hypothesis, they
these.
say lead
I
poisoning
had them in
degrades the
yellow
development of
before.
childhood brains in ways that increase aggression, reduce impulse control, and impair the executive functions that allow people to understand just the consequences of their actions. Because of this, infants who are exposed to high levels of lead are more likely to commit violent crimes later in life. So why is this? Brain scientists have done scans and found that because lead is really chemically similar to calcium, it displaces the
Definitely do some
calcium
kind
needed
of
for
ivy
brain
around
development.
here.
So looking at the data is staggering. You can see how the bands of leaded gasoline and lead paint correspond to these huge
I have
drops in
no
violent
color
crimes.
scheme in
Yes,
mind at all.
I have a victimology episode coming up, and hell yeah.
I'm
we
not
will be
really
talking about
basing
that.
it off
Violent
of a
crime
sheet
is going
either.
down. Violent
I just
themed
wanted
gameplay is going up.
angles
It's just not.
and
There's
different
no
kind
data
of,
to suggest that
half
there
balls.
is any kind of correlation, let alone causation. However, that
But
said,
I kind of like
two
this.
things. There are
The
certain
yellow,
types
the
of gameplay that can
green,
turn
the
you
black,
into
and the
a
white.
jerk.
I kind of like
Not
that.
a violent person, but somebody who has less empathy for people they perceive as weaker than them and who are kind of moodier and may yell at you or be grumpy to you, and you're just like, ugh, why are you so obnoxious or such a jerk? That kind of gameplay is when you play in these very aggressive themed games against strangers who you don't know and will never see in person. We tend to dehumanize those
fun.
opponents.
Okay.
We don't know who they are. So
Actually,
we're
I
playing
haven't. I
anonymously
don't
online.
really use
We're trying
stream
to beat
much.
them.
I'm trying
We
to use
build
it
up in our
more.
mind that there's like horrible people.
I follow
and we hate them,
Simarky,
and
so
we feel antagonistic
shout out to
towards them.
Simarky. She's pretty fun.
And those emotions that we build up, the frustration, the anger, the hatred.
But
it's
yeah,
not like you just walk away from the
finally
game
getting
and they
on stream
evaporate,
more.
so they
and
can
kind of
linger. Some people
actually being a
hypothesize that
viewer.
there's a kind
It's
of
kind of fun.
testosterone poisoning from this type of gameplay. I mean, poisoning's a little strong of a word, but your testosterone gets jacked up, and so yeah, you're kind of a jerk. So you shouldn't spend all your time trying to beat people you have never met and will never meet online. You know, esports is different because these are much more collegial environments. You can play against the same people again and again and
I have
again.
no idea
You can
how
see
close
them
I
in
am
person
to
at tournaments.
affiliate.
That's fine.
And another thought about violence.
Should be
in
fun
video
though. Are you excited?
I don't like
I
to
bet
play
you're
games
excited.
where I have to kill people. I hate it. When I play Fortnite, I just hide, and it's like literally a game of hide and seek for me. And I build stuff, and I can get a top 5 finish without killing anyone, and to me that's awesome. I don't like it. I don't enjoy it. There's a reason why a lot of people don't enjoy it. Like, a lot of people don't want to simulate violence because
I'm in
we
the
don't
Florida
enjoy it.
area.
And that's a natural feeling, and it's why a lot of people are turned off by video game culture. It's
We have good
not
sandwiches.
abnormal
That's about it
to
here.
not enjoy violence. Like, that's
Where are you
that's
from?
also a normal thing. If you're turned off by it, that's okay, and you don't have to play violent video games, or if you play them, you don't have to necessarily engage in the violent aspects of them. That is normal, and that's fine, and I personally feel the same way.
And this actually goes straight into Crystal Mendoza wanted to know, what is the deal with Fortnite? Why is it so addicting? Is it the killing part, or is it that kind of feeling that you're hanging out with friends?
Yeah.
Oh,
like
from
that
Florida.
socializing?
Yeah, there's a lot of things.
Central Florida, Tampa?
is kind of special about Fortnite. I mean,
New
one of
Zealand.
the things
Oh
is
wow,
just
that's
how easy
fun.
it is to try again.
I
So if
have
you're in
not.
Battle
I've
Royale
not been to
mode,
New Zealand. How
Battle
is
Royale
it?
mode,
Like,
by
what's
the
the
by,
weather
is when
like?
a bunch of players
today?
play against each other. It's
Today's
like
kind
a
of-
birthday party, but
It's
you
kind
die.
of warm out
you
today
play,
here.
and maybe you're dead in 5 minutes. You can just play again. You can drop back in, parachute back down. You don't have to, wait for anybody.
Like I immediately went to the weather. I'm
this
sorry.
sense of, like, just abundant opportunity, and how fast the games are, and how quickly you can try again. It really powers up that part of the brain that thinks that something good might happen.
8 months of the year.
Like, oh,
That's
something
fun.
good didn't happen.
That's fun.
Oh, but wait, I'm just gonna play again. Something good could happen now. That rapidity, that sort of iterative nature of the game is really, really wonderful. And they've done such a good job with the expressivity of the avatars, and how playful the different skins are. And you just, when you encounter people and you see what their avatar is dressed as, and you see the emotes that they do when something good happens, you just kind of feel like you're
What games do you
seeing
play?
people. It's really interesting.
Do you play The Sims? Oh no, wait. You
feel like
did
there's
say
an
PS4, but do you
authentic
stream the
personality
Sims
that
in
they're able to
PS4?
express, or an authentic emotion, and it increases the sense of presence, and it increases the sense of social being, and so yeah, the social side of it is really compelling too. And I just think it's nice, like, to play a game where 99 people are going to lose and only one person wins. It kind of takes the pressure off.
There can be 100 people in the room and 99 don't believe in you.
I think it's easier for people to jump
Oh,
in.
hey,
and
was that
it's,
Lady
when you're
Gaga?
playing chess, one person wins, one person loses. You were the loser. And in the Battle Royale, everyone's a loser. So it's a kind of a low pressure environment where good things can happen.
What do you think about video games in movies and TV? Is there anything that you've watched that you love or hate? And Stuart Caswell wanted to know
the
from
one
a game
that
designer's
came
point of view,
with,
what are your thoughts on Ready Player One?
But
yeah,
yeah,
are there
his
anything in
wallpaper?
pop culture that gets it wrong and that
Because
you're
it doesn't
excited
have
about?
that border
Oh,
at the
gosh.
bottom.
Okay, well, first of all,
But it doesn't have that
every
pop
Law and Order
3D
episode
effect
on
like
every
this one
franchise
does.
of
You know
Law
what I
and
mean?
Order, and as CSI and Criminal Minds has been terrible always, 100%.
Looks better,
Never
it's
gets
fine.
anything right. Well, it's obviously let's
I like
acknowledge that.
this.
Even though I love them all.
Okay, I am
and watch
playing.
this
Is
review
that
every
Red?
week.
What is it?
But
Red Dead
Ready
Redemption
Player
2.
One is interesting
Okay,
because
but
I
I stopped
had a
because the
strong
game
visceral
needs more
reaction
updates.
to the book that
I wonder
still
if that's
kind
when
of
my
feel,
partner
which is I just don't
I know
believe
he's
it.
been playing for
Okay,
a
I was
while.
maybe the last person on planet Earth to know the plot of
It
Ready
looks
Player
cool.
One.
Something
I just
about
looked it
like
up.
he
It
keeps
takes
feeding
place
his
in
horse.
2045 The world is a desolate hellscape, and then to escape that, everyone just wears VR headsets. But there's a real life game that happens.
I looked once at wrong timing. I just looked over and he was peeling like a bear skin. I was like, no, what's going on?
You just see each other's avatars. Anyway, is this our future?
I don't think that VR is going to be the alternative to reality in that kind of really holistic way that Ready Player One imagines. I think augmented reality is a much more likely future, and that VR will be more often used for kind of short-term immersions. I love VR, for example. It's being used in hospice care for people who still have like bucket list items but they're dying. VR for kind of reliving past experiences when we get this really immersive 360 footage, and you can kind of immerse yourself in things that you've experienced in the past. Like, I think I just don't buy the vision of Ready Player One. I don't see that that's what people want. Kind of going back to research, my PhD research methodology was largely ethnography.
The free roam kind of reminded me of, I mean, of course,
what drives people, and sit with the communities and sit with individuals and look for patterns that help explain how a society might evolve. And you see a lot of the same thing bubbling up as a motivation and desire in different communities. And so I just don't
Grand Theft Auto. Yeah, it's kind of like Grand Theft Auto, sure, but I like the free roam kind of like the way with the horse, the way the Sims 3 had it.
In just a few months, no product has ever scaled as quickly, like including the wheel. Like, more humans use Pokemon Go faster than anything that's ever been invented, and I think that gives us a better glimpse into what the future of gaming.
What's story mode like, or what's the difference?
Pokemon Go, because you could still see the world, and you could still have face-to-face contact with other people, and you could be physically active, which feels good, and get fresh air and all of that. So that's my feeling about Ready Player One. I don't think we're headed towards that future, and I'd love to see, like, Ready Player 2 should be about the augmented reality version of that world, and it might be a better one.
I asked Jane if she watched Russian Doll on Netflix, in which Natasha Lyonne is a game designer. Jane says she didn't watch it because it might feel like work to her and just stress her out.
Okay.
I mean, not unlike Fortnite. It's kind of a birthday party.
You can do more in story mode. Okay.
Last two questions. If
have you seen this movie that they're talking about right now on the podcast? It's not a movie, it's a show.
The shittiest thing about what you do.
With Natasha Lyonne from
Can be anything.
Orange is the New Black.
The most annoying thing is,
why is this not
I mean, it's just that I hate the shame around gaming that is perpetuated by the media and to some extent by anxious parents. It makes me crazy, and I think we need to stop shaming people for loving games, because we've loved games since we were human beings. Some of the oldest artifacts in the world are game boards and game dice, and we need to stop creating unnecessary shame around this, because it hurts people and it affects their self-image in really damaging long-term ways. So that is the most annoying thing.
It's kind of trash now.
The shaming, and the media has a big role to play in it, and we need to stop it.
I'm so old school. I play The Sims because I've always played it, and I play
that's legit.
Like all Mario games, basically.
About video games,
so Luigi's Mansion.
I mean, my favorite.
I was thinking about streaming it the other day, because I'm pretty sure I can do like a quick run through.
We've been together
in a couple hours.
2000.
What's like a game that you know you can go?
One of the first things we did
you can do it super fast.
Play an adventure game called Grim Fandango, one player, LucasArts browser-based game. You like explore a world together, and we spent a few weeks playing it together, and I still I love when a new game comes out, whether it's Gone Home game or Fortnite. We can sit and experience it together, and we have these sort of memorable moments in our history. Like when we found Portal, when we found Braid, when we found World of Warcraft. I really love developing a skill with him together and having that novelty and that exploration and curiosity. There's so many positive emotions that we feel when we play.
Yeah, I know. It does help your channel grow.
It's really powerful. And
I was thinking about it. I might actually do it.
Excited.
I'll probably do it
when we have time and opportunity to discover a new game together.
I'm gonna commit to it sometime.
Now I'm gonna have to learn League of Legends and download Tetris.
Yes. Good. Victory.
Thank you so much for doing this. I'm so glad I finally got to talk to you. I feel like I've just towed the line of creepy of like, hi, it's me again. Hi. Hi.
Oh no, and I wish, you know what, if I had known that you would interview people like on a bench at LAX, also we could have done this a long time ago, because that is something that I often find myself
So yes, Jane McGonigal, the woman the world needs. So befriend someone, and even if you have to do it over Skype
It
in
looks
a remote
like a
sound
shadow
400 miles away, ask smart people
being really
stupid questions, because they have the keys that can unlock the Easter eggs that can give you life.
But this
more
is
lives.
bugging me.
So find out more about Jane McGonigal at janemcgonigal.com. She's also Avant Game on Twitter, and I'll link all of this in the show notes, including the nonprofit ablegamers.org and the sponsor links. And Jane's book, once again, is called Super Better, a revolutionary approach to getting stronger, happier, braver, and more resilient, powered by the science of games. And also, Dr. Kelly McGonigal, Jane's sister, is a psychologist who studies how to make stress your friend. You better believe I'm going to try to make her come on the show. McGonigals, y'all good folks. So to find Ologies, you can follow Ologies on Twitter and Instagram at Ologies, and I'm Allie Ward with one L on both. And for t-shirts with the Ologies logo and mugs and totes and pins and hats, all that is at ologiesmerch.com. You can tag your Instagram photos Ologies merch, so then I can repost them on Mondays if you want. Thank you, Shannon Feltis and Bonnie Dutch, for managing that. Thank you, Erin Talbert and Hannah Lippo, for adminning the Facebook group, full of great folks. Thank you to interns Harry Kim and Caleb Patton, to assistant editor Jarrett Sleeper of Mind Jam Media, and of course to the incomparable Stephen Ray Morris of
someone
the
perked up here. Hold up
See
a sec.
Jurassic Right, and also to Nick Thorburn.
Never mind, she went away.
Who wrote
I have a cat.
I
have a cat, and she perked up.
If you stick around to the end, you know I
and then she went away.
This week, you get two.
Hi, come here.
After my disgusting botfly confession last week, Stegosaur Rage on Instagram DM'd me asking if I'd ever seen videos of mango worms, and then ruined my life because I watched so many. It's so gross. They make botflies just seem like child's play. Just don't do it. 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 Also, my other secret is that I mentioned dating someone, and for years and years I've been
this is my Frida.
Super low pro about
Hi,
who
Frida.
I'm dating, 'cause it's just a vulnerable thing, and also what if
She
it
doesn't.
ends,
She doesn't really like
have to
people
explain that
or
to people. I just
anyone. She's like my grumpy cat.
Anyway, go get him, kiddos. You all mean so much to me.
But she asks us for permission to come up here on the computer, which is really, really sweet of her.
Meteorology.
But yeah, she'll just lay around my computer for a little bit. Oh, do you have a cat? And if you do they cuddle up your phone? Thank you.
Hey, so this episode
She's a
of Ologies
rescue.
is sponsored by KiwiCo, and KiwiCo projects are so cool. They're designed to spark creativity and tinkering and learning in kids of all ages, grown-ups, making slime, no shame, and mostly they make learning about science, tech, engineering, art, math.
She's actually
fun.
here
So
attacking
KiwiCo
my
is offering
hand.
Ologites the chance to try them for free. To redeem this
tail
offer and
almost
learn more
may
about their
swish
projects for kids of all ages,
in and out of the
visit
screen. It's so cute. She's so sweet.
kiwico.com/ologies.
She's so sweet, honestly.
Oh, hey, it's that guy in your video editing class who chews
where you
so
live,
much gum.
you're not allowed to have
actually
pets. That
Ward,
sucks.
back
We
with
had
another
that
episode
issue
of
before,
Ologies.
so what I
So
kind
this
of did was
episode,
just
I'm
have an
just-
emotional support
I'm
pet.
gonna say this up top,
So
just get out of the
that
way.
was okay. In our country, I don't know how it is over there, but in our country, we just
Now
go
we're
to the
gonna
doctor.
start
We ask
by
for
talking about
a letter
the
from
passions that lead
the
to
doctor
a
asking
career
for
in
us to have an emotional support
extraterrestrial
animal,
alien searches,
and
as
they
well
can't
as
really
lay
kick you
down
out.
some foundations on missions in our solar system, and then we'll get to what
There's requirements
could
too,
live
though.
where. But before we get to alive things, on
Sorry, she's
distant
all over my mouth.
space
She's all over
bodies,
my mat.
Let's thank some Earthlings. So thank you to all the people who make the podcast possible on patreon.com.
You have a
Ologies,
bed
all
over
my
there,
buddies
way over
to all
there.
the folks sporting Ologies
Come on,
swag
Frida.
from ologiesmerch.com.
I'm
Thank you to all the
Frida,
folks who are rating and making sure you're subscribed and leaving reviews for me to peruse like a semi-creep, such as, for example, one left by anonymous epidemiologist this week who said, "More years of grad school than I like to admit tends to hamper my ability to talk about my research without being boring, condescending, inaccurate, or worse. all three. I love this podcast because it helps me figure out how to talk about my own work in a way that is true, but hopefully relatable. I'm going to say I think a lot of folks listening probably related to that. So boom, there you go. Okay, astrobiology, let's get to it. Once called exobiology, but let's consult the Greek, shall we? So astro comes from the word for star, and biology has its roots in the verb to live. So what is out there living on those ding-dang stars? What's on the planets? That's the big question. Is anything alive out there? What are the
I listened to a
odds?
lot of
Is it big?
podcasts.
Is it small? Is it cooler?
The other day I had The Horror of Dolores Roach. That one's pretty interesting if you're into like gentrification. She's
gentle
inmate, or she's not an inmate anymore. She was an inmate for 16 years. And then she's released and goes back to her home city, her hometown of Washington Heights, which is where I'm from in New York. And let's see, she goes to a town that's just, everything's different, everything's new, and it has a Sweeney Todd element, like a lot of Sweeney Todd elements actually. That one's fun to listen to. It's kind of like a storytelling podcast. The one that I'm going to put on right now, I think it's this one. Yeah, okay, so it's this one. It's Imagined Life. So they go through someone's entire story, and you have to figure out who that person is before the episode ends. And throughout the whole episode, they give you hints and stuff. That one's fun. Hi, Frida.
Imagine. It's the mid-'80s and you're graduating from college.
Hi,
it's
Kitty.
A sunny day. The first in a while.
Oh, my girlfriend has 3 cats, but all the cats live at the family's house. Okay. Well, I mean, at least you have pets in your life. I think it's so important to have these little fur babies here.
So proud of you.
Has a podcast category. Is that the in real life thing? Like some kind of meetings I've seen in there.
Trendy asymmetrical haircuts.
Okay, you have to get your butt off the screen, honey.
Photo of him and some friends before the ceremony. Get together, you guys. How do we look? Like a poor man's Duran Duran. You can make jokes because you're not nervous. It's almost as if this whole day is happening to someone else. You should be on the top of the world. After years of committed study, a 3,000-word dissertation in French, a semester abroad in Paris, and lots of tests that you aced without having to study too much, you're graduating. But something just feels off, underwhelming, false, like your heart's not in it.
Okay, just chatting is that. Okay. That's fun.
When you hear your name, you rise from your seat and cross the stage.
I'm so distracted by her tail. It's all over my keyboard and she won't move it. She just swishes it around.
Ear to ear, applauding.
She knows what she's doing.
It looks like their hands might fall off. You've never seen them happier. At least, not in the years since your mom got sick. It's surreal to see your mother in a wheelchair.
I want to keep it somewhat matching the rest of the block. So I have a Victorian on that side, some brownstones, and like a Cuban-inspired build here.
You ask one of the Duran Duran lookalikes from earlier to snap a family photo. Make sure to get a shot with each parent holding the diploma. Which is fitting because this is a moment they've been looking forward to all their lives.
Okay.
Your college graduation is their dream come true. But that's not yours. You have a dream that's yours, but it's buried deep inside. So deep that you've barely acknowledged it to yourself, let alone said it out loud. It will take you many years of failure, abuse, poverty, and loss before you start to realize who you were meant to be. Discover the Fairy Tale podcast that brings the daring adventures of real women to life for your little ones. Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls.
Okay,
The fun,
talk shows and
inspiring
podcasts.
children's podcast is back.
I listen to so many
With 11 new
podcasts.
inspiring stories.
I
read by
wonder if
some
I
of
should be
today's most
ashamed, but
influential women,
whatever.
including Priscilla Chan, Jackie Cruz, and Amy Landecker. In Season 2, you'll try a case in the Supreme Court with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, save a country with the Mirabelle sisters, and so much more. Look for Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls, the podcast, on your favorite podcast platforms, or go to rebelgirls.co/podcast. And
What
always
podcasts do you
stay
listen to?
rebel. From Wondery, I'm Virginia Madsen, and this is Imagined Life.
I have never seen a podcast live. I went to I love My Favorite Murder. So I went to My Favorite Murder, a live show here in Tampa. That was fun. But seeing one on Twitch, I haven't seen one. I'm gonna check one out. Which one do you recommend if you've seen one?
You'll experience the challenges, the heartbreaks, the loss, and the triumphs.
Can I have my hand back,
To
please?
your identity along the way. Only at the
Sorry.
end will you find out
Thank
who
you.
are. So sit back, let go, and imagine.
Frida, I'm gonna kick you
your
out.
life.
She's not being a good cat right now.
On this episode, The Daydreamer.
Okay. I'm gonna check one out.
Imagine.
See what I
It's
find.
20 years after your college graduation, and you find yourself at another commencement ceremony. This one's your worst nightmare come to life. The only way it could be worse is if you're covered in spiders. You hate spiders. This should be a happy day, but you're not happy.
That was a hint. Do
You're
you
sick
know
to your
who
stomach,
the
heart
person is
racing,
yet in the
throat
podcast?
tight, palms sweaty, and oh god, people are gonna want to shake your hand. Your clammy, sweaty hand. You could wipe your hands on your sweater, but then you'd have sweat marks on your sweater, and that's what people would remember about you and this day. The sweaty sweater. You should have just said no. Why didn't you just say no?
I'm looking through this category
so
here.
happy
There's a
you're here.
lot.
Thank
Let's
you
see.
so much. That's a lie. You would rather be anywhere else. But hey, let's try to stay in gratitude, as they say. They've asked you to give the commencement speech at Harvard. While you've walked down some hollowed halls in your day, these are surely the hollowest. Is that even a word? You've got to stop making up words. Do you want them to take back that honorary degree they just gave you? This is the green room with some drinks and
Okay, that one looks kind of
water's over
cool.
there.
Is this a horror story
Relax, and
one?
I'll come and get you when they're ready. Right. Thank you. Did I mention this is
I'm
the
gonna look at
biggest
this category later. It looks like there's a horror
Not to
story
make
one
you nervous
somewhere
or
there.
anything. Too late. You're gonna do great. Thank you. You force yourself to take a deep, cleansing
I'm not
breath.
liking these stairs.
Why did they say cleansing breath anyway? What exactly are we cleansing? You step up to the full-length mirror and reassess your outfit for the 20th time that day. Too simple? Too casual? Too late now. You look down at your shaking hands.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Long enough and hard enough, they'll stop trembling. It doesn't work. You try to remember the time in your life when you felt more terrified.
Can you hear this
than you
podcast,
feel
by the
at
way?
this moment. You can't think of one. Come in. They're ready for you. As you walk to your doom, also known as the dais, in front of thousands of young people who, let's face it, are probably smarter than you, you can't help but
Okay. Who do you think it is so far?
how the hell did I end up here? Back to that other graduation, the degree you actually earned.
I do know this, so I don't want to spoil.
You wanted to major in English and classics, but your parents thought it wasn't practical. Well, how's some story that's 10,000 years old gonna help you get a job today? Your His question is rhetorical. It doesn't. They believe that if you could speak another language, you could always find work as a translator. So now, you're officially an adult. Theoretically, you can do whatever you want with your life. But you're still drawn to the quote-unquote safe route your parents laid out for you.
Okay, let's see. So far, we have one hint. This person does not like spiders.
Jobs and dull, drab offices. They utilize your language and typing skills. And
okay, sorry. This person does not like spiders, and as an adult is talking at Harvard.
Except for one. Amnesty International is a human rights organization with offices all over the world. They help people like political prisoners, refugees, and torture victims who live under oppressive regimes. I'll laugh a minute, it is not. You suck at the organizational parts of the job. A nightmare of a secretary is how you'll later describe yourself. But at least in this dull, drab office, the work has meaning. In some small way, you're helping to make the world a better place. One day, an African torture victim comes in to be interviewed on camera about the unspeakable brutality he's endured. It's harrowing to listen to. Afterwards, your boss asks you to walk the gentleman back to the subway. He's a foot taller than you, and yet he seems so vulnerable, almost childlike. You've just watched him tremble through his interview, recalling one unspeakable horror after another, and you have no idea what to talk to him about. Small talk seems insufficient, but saying nothing seems unkind. You opt for small talk. Is this your first time in the city? Yes. What do you think of it? It is crazy. While looking at you, the man nearly steps in front of an oncoming bus. You throw your arm out in front of him like a mother behind the wheel of a car who hits the brakes with her kid in the passenger seat. He sighs with relief. It is also very beautiful. Crazy and beautiful. Yes, I agree. You arrive at the subway station. The man sets down his bag, takes your hand in both of his, and looks into your eyes. I wish you much future happiness. The fact that this man, who has seen such cruelty and terror in his life, wants good things for you, it causes you to burst into tears. But not in front of him. You wait until his subway car zooms away. Then, you fall apart.
Sweet
A few years
kitty.
later, you meet another young man on another train. The train's late and you're frustrated. You
Still
finish reading
playing
the book
here
you
with
brought
me. It's
with
so
you,
sweet.
So you're just staring out the window, watching the world go by. And suddenly, he shows up. You hit it off right away. He's younger than you, still in school, bookish like you, and a bit soft-spoken, but he's special, undeniably so, and he doesn't know it. That's why you find him so irresistible. In the subsequent months and years, you and Train Guy spend a lot of time together. Even when you're in a different city, he's never far from your thoughts. It's not a romantic relationship, really. You're still involved with your boyfriend from college, but it definitely is a love affair. Train Guy, let's call him TG. He sees you the way you want to be seen, as an artist with something to say. Something that the world might find interesting and meaningful. But you tell no one.
It's more like an accusation. If I didn't believe it, I wouldn't be wasting my time.
What just happened?
She's not really listening.
Hold on,
She's
I just skipped to another podcast.
About TG.
Okay, we're back.
TG is your
TG.
little secret. And one day, he's going to change your life. It's 7:30 in the morning on December 31st. Hello? It's your father. He never calls this early. You steel yourself. This can't be good news.
Your mother's gone.
Suddenly, you can't breathe. You knew this day was going to come eventually. You remember your mother drawing up a will at the kitchen table when she was in her mid-30s. So why does
You can't guess who it is? Okay. Stay in for a little bit. It's a good one.
Noise, kind of panic. It's a new feeling. Like you're out of control, lost, and it's terrifying. How could this be? You just seen her a few days ago. She seemed weak, but that was always the case. You'd gotten used to her illness getting worse, but you never believed she would actually die. You need to talk to someone who will understand, who's feeling the same way.
They say
You call your sister
from a
Di.
bus.
Di.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Gone.
You're 45. That is so young.
I know.
A few days later, you're sitting with your sister in a crematorium 30 miles from your childhood home. Your mother's memorial service is set to start in a few minutes. Di puts her arm around you and you finally let go.
That's the second hint. The sister's name is Di.
Why are you so much stronger?
Her
than
nickname
me?
is Di.
I'm the older one. Because I'm just a much better person overall. You laugh for the first time since you got the phone call from your father. It feels good. One thing about having your world fall apart, it forces you to look at life with fresh eyes and make some changes. College boyfriend, the sizzle has fizzled. Ended. Current desk job.
It's okay.
the
You'll
one
catch
you
up.
took after Amnesty International.
I can't remember all the
Soul-crushing.
hints, but
Get out.
I mean, I
To
guess they weren't
describe
that
you as
important. I don't know.
lost during this period doesn't quite cut it. Loss implies there's
I did know who
something
this person was almost
have no
immediately, though.
idea
I
who
would
you
say
are.
that.
You're drowning, barely treading water, feeling like you might go under at any second, and you're not so sure you'd mind. It would be so much easier. It's time for a change, a big one. You see an ad in the newspaper. English teachers wanted. Travel to Portugal. Now
Okay, so here's another hint.
would really be a change.
This person went to Portugal. It is a celebrity.
You get the job.
So here are some hints that I will give.
Sunshine, freedom, Portuguese guys.
Let me pause it because
do
I'm,
this.
I'm listening to two things at once. Okay. Some hints about this person. Very famous person. I will not say what they do because that will be the biggest giveaway. Abbreviations are a big thing for this person. This person does not like spiders. This person is a woman. We mentioned that they went to Harvard. No, not that they went to Harvard to study. They went to Harvard just to speak at a graduation event, it looked like, or it sounded like. And their mother died kind of young. Well, not kind of. 45 is pretty young, actually. So their mother died young, especially when this person was young. And they have a sister nicknamed Di. Those are the hints so far. Okay, we'll continue.
In the city of Porto, you finally
Oh, and they went to
liberated
Portugal.
from your family pressures. Sunny and sexy, and nobody knows you. You finally get to reinvent yourself. You're free to be who you really are, whoever that is.
Still no clue?
We'll
Okay.
figure that out later. Right now, it's party time. You share an apartment with two other teachers from overseas, and quickly become best friends. You're all in your mid-20s, single, ready to mingle. It's on. One Saturday night at a club by the river, you catch the eye of a handsome journalism student named Georgie. Goatee, nerdy glasses, fits like he's played a lot of soccer. He's 3 years younger than you, but he's also a lot taller, so you figure it cancels out. And even better, he seems to be interested in you. What do you do when you're not teaching? Do you like sports? Of course he
No,
asks
it's not
you
Salma
like
Hayek.
sports. It's not your strong suit. Oh well. Better he knows the truth now. I'm the worst. My
Oh
roommates
wait, I
play
forgot
soccer,
the
but I just-
biggest hint. They mentioned the train guy. That was the train that you were talking about, the subway. Okay, so the train guy, when they mentioned it was she was on a train and she met a train guy, and they only mentioned abbreviations. They named him TJ. His name's TJ. What was it about this train guy? There wasn't a romantic relationship at all. It was... She was just intrigued by this guy. She wanted to know more. She wanted to dive deeper into that world.
Sit on the side and cheer. Or read a book. What are you reading now? I'm actually rereading a book I've read many times before. Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. I know this book. I love this book. No, you don't.
Nope, not Jennifer
So
Lopez.
which sister are you?
It's not Spanish.
Marianne or Eleanor? Uh-oh. You are so screwed. You fall madly in love with Georgie. Mad being the operative word. It's a tumultuous relationship from the get-go, like those larger-than-life romances you've read. Full of passion, desire, obsession. But also loud fights, usually about one or the other's comings and goings. And then there were the public breakups, followed by equally public makeups and declarations of love. Your relationship was a spectator sport in the neighborhood. One friend who witnessed one of these arguments later told you it was the look on his face that scared me the most. Not just angry, but afraid and capable of anything.
Okay, and this person went through a bad relationship.
But at least you're finally living. You marry Georgie in a small ceremony at a local government office. Your sister Di flies over as support. You put up your hair and wear a strand of pearls to try and class up the occasion. Later in the afternoon, you teach your regular classes at the language school. There's no honeymoon. For his birthday, you give Georgie a CD of a violin concerto by Tchaikovsky. It's a gift for him, but it's you who puts it on every day. The lead violin feels like a character.
Diane Lane. I
One
think the
goes through
sister's
all
name
the
is
highs
Di.
and lows of life, and comes out the other side. Listening to it makes you feel you're part of a longer, larger...
This
human
person
story.
loves reading.
Georgie, come here, I have something to tell you. You've just returned to your modest apartment after an evening of teaching. You turn the music down, but not off. Something about it that you find
Hey there,
soothing.
Alex.
And you need that now. I'm pregnant again. Again because you'd been pregnant a year ago and miscarried. Not long after you and Georgie met. The loss at the time added more pain and stress to an already fraught relationship. So you don't know if this second pregnancy is a blessed do-over or far more responsibility than your young marriage can withstand. You worry that he's going to get angry. There's nothing worse than when Georgie gets angry. So say something. What do you think? I'm so happy. The moment you'll later describe
you
as
sound
the best moment of your life.
very, very happy.
Happens on a sweltering hot day in July. You give birth to a daughter. You name her Jessica. After the human rights activist Jessica Mitford you came to admire during your days at Amnesty International. You hope your Jessica turns out to be as brave and strong and compassionate as the woman whose name she now bears. But right now, you're the one who has to be brave. Your relationship with Georgie has been tumultuous and jealousy fueled from the word go. There's been physical abuse. Once he even shoved you in front of your coworkers. And now you've reached your breaking point. One cold November night, it comes to a head and you finally say the words out loud. I don't love you anymore. What happens after that is a blur. Crying, yes. Fighting, yes. Yelling, undoubtedly. Being pulled out of the house and onto the street, yes. And worse. When the smoke clears and your senses return to you, you realize that if you're going to survive, have to take 4-month-old Jessica and leave Georgie. You have to leave Portugal. You have to go somewhere else. You have no idea where, but you have to do it soon. So you do. It's early in the morning. Too early. You stumble into the bathroom, rubbing the sleep out of your eyes, and pick up your toothbrush. You sigh. The bristles are a little frayed, and they have
I think there's
been
a
for longer
commercial.
than you care to admit.
I think I'll skip
You
it.
know you should buy
Oh,
a
I
new
can't.
one, but you just keep forgetting. I get it. Life gets in the way.
Yeah, it's a commercial.
But with Quip, the etquip.com/imagine. I loved it. No matter what kind of wild story you'd make up or scenario you'd create to act out
I think
together,
I skipped ahead a little bit. I'm gonna
Di
go
was
back.
on.
There we go.
When you were a little girl, you used to play a game with Di. You call it Cliffhanger. One of you dangles off the top step of the family stairwell, as if hanging onto a cliff for dear life. And the other sister would be the rescuer who pulls the other to safety. Most of the time. Sometimes you'd let the other plummet. But that was part of the fun. When it comes to your fantasy life, you've always had a dark streak. And Di loved it. No matter what kind of wild story you'd make up or scenario you'd create to act out together, Di was on board. And the fact that the family lived close to both a rolling river and a huge forest made your adventures together even more thrilling and cinematic. Nearly 20 years later, Di is still the one who comes to your rescue. She invites you to come to the city where she recently settled with her new husband. Starting fresh in a new town, a place with no bad memories, sounds like it could be good. But let's face it, you've got nowhere else to go. Going to live with your father is not an option. He remarried 2 years after your mother died, to the woman who had been his secretary, and things between you have been tense. So it's your sister Di or Di. Determined not to be a burden, you find an apartment in the city for you and Jessica. It's a total dump, but it's home. No, it's not. It's a total dump. Mice, bugs, hidden misheating. But the humiliations are just beginning. You apply for government assistance. University graduate, young professional, and now you're going on welfare. It's form after form, interview after interview, all revolving around one thing. How you managed to make such an unmitigated disaster of your life. It says here you were working in Portugal. What were you doing? I was teaching English. Why can't you teach here? I can, but I lack the proper
Okay, thank you.
which I plan to get as soon as I get
Thank
on
you
my
for
feet.
chatting. It was nice to have you here.
Quite an involved process.
I hope to see you
It takes
again.
a year. The interviewer looks down at you over his glasses, makes a few notes. He thinks you're a total loser. You're certain.
Oh, it's the
Drag
yoga
of society.
studio.
It doesn't help matters that just a few months ago, a national politician gave an interview where he basically laid the blame for all the ills of society on single mothers like you. I see, he says. But what you hear is, hope you're pleased with yourself, young lady. You've ruined the country. You know what would be fun? To hit the pompous know-it-all in the face with a shovel. What about your husband? He's in Portugal. We're divorcing. Are you sure there's no saving it? I'm not sure this is the right place to discuss that, but yes, I'm sure. I'm positive. Mr. Interviewer takes a few notes, then reads over your forms in silence, occasionally offering a disapproving grunt or sigh. As you fixate on the stamp on his desk, the one you need to get your money.
Thank you
Give this to the clerk outside. Thank you. The next 2 years are the hardest of your life. And you have a tiny baby to take care of. But thank God you do. Some days, she's the only thing that gets you through. You pick up some secretarial work here and there, but only enough to keep you under the limit to still receive benefits. You battle depression. Not the I'm feeling a bit bummed out today kind, but the deep...
Thank you for following.
One day you're at a girlfriend's house and she's telling you a story. Something about a party she went to with her husband and children, but you can't focus on it at all. All you can think about is how many freaking toys they have. Dolls, cars, stuffed animals, Legos, puzzles, more Legos, action figures, balls, a big wheel. Jessica's toys, meanwhile, can fit in a shoebox. All of them. You know that for sure because that's where you store them. In a shoebox. How is this fair? Why is your friend's life so perfect and yours is such a shambles? You did everything you were supposed to do. You're a smart, capable person.
Thank you for following.
And the nagging voice deep inside that keeps telling you, this is not the person you were supposed to be. Well, there's not enough Tchaikovsky in the world to drown it out.
Okay, I am hungry. I'm actually gonna go off.
You take Jessica's toys
But thank
out
you
of
for
that
being in my
good old
channel.
trusty shoebox for
I
her
hope
to play
everyone
with,
has a great day.
and you cry